Alright everyone, in this video we're going to work our way through carving a linoleum block. Before you get started, make sure you have your image completely transferred and ready to go on the block. Carving tools come in all kinds of shapes and sizes. The tool we'll be using for this class, the blue handled tool on the right, is fairly inexpensive and easily found. The tool on the right, a traditional gouge, is made of tempered steel and is therefore much more expensive, but more versatile as it could be used for wood and linoleum. Your linoleum carving tool should have come automatically with different size gouges. And gouge is the word that we use for these blades that we'll be cutting with. They should range in size from the number 1, which is really small, great for delicate work, to the number 10, which is a broad C or U shape used for cutting away wide swaths of the linoleum. Okay, let's see how easy it is to change that blade. Just loosen up the chuck, take your new blade, insert it in between the two pieces, and then tighten up firmly. You may have to practice a few times. This photo shows you the different types of marks that you can make with your carving tools. So moving from the left-hand side over, you can see the fine, delicate marks of the number 1 V tool, the slightly larger marks of the number 3, the same marks made with similar gouges, and then how the marks get broader as we move into the U or C-shaped gouge. Okay, before we get started carving, let's just review a few pointers from our earlier video with Phil Sanders. There's the positive and the negative approach to relief printmaking. The positive approach, as you see on the bottom, is sometimes referred to as black line. The white areas were carved away, leaving the black lines of the image. Whereas on the top, it's referred to as white lines, as the white lines were carved away and set on the dark printed background. Okay, you've got your blade ready to go and it's time to carve. Notice that carving linoleum is always done with a push away from the body. I'm holding the tool and I tend to hold it with 2 hands so I can really precisely guide it, and I push away, leaving the marks that I've drawn with the Sharpie. Then I flick off that little remaining piece of linoleum. Okay, let's look at this from a different angle. For linoleum relief printmaking, we only need to carve away 1/8 of an inch of the linoleum in order to get our raised and lowered surface for printings. So I hold the blade fairly parallel and just gently scoop away. So carving too deeply, that is holding the tool at a really sharp angle, will actually cause you to more likely slip and make mistakes. So just get in that habit early on of working very shallowly when you're carving. Again, hold the tool close to parallel to the block. So the great thing about linoleum is that it doesn't have a grain. So as I'm carving it, I will actually turn it and move it around so that I can get curved marks. So as I carve, I oftentimes think about ways that I can build a retaining wall around shapes and forms. So if you'll notice how I carved around the edge of the petal and then started carving into that to get that effect. So let's just watch how that works. Okay, as we go through this, you can see why I decided to stain the block pinkish red. I can see where I've carved away with ease. Also notice I'm moving the block around a lot, but I'm always keeping my non-dominant hand out of the way of the blade. It should be behind the blade at all times, lest I end up needing a band-aid. Okay, at this point I've carved away both flowers, and now I'm going to get rid of that background area. So the first thing that I'm doing is actually carving in that retaining wall. So I'm going around both of the flowers, just removing a thin line. Okay, let's slow that down a little bit so you can see the carving in real time. Again, I just move along slowly, moving my tool as well as the linoleum, and I keep my fingers out of the way. And let's watch that again. Okay, now with that retaining wall in place, I'm ready to carve away all that background area. But I'm going to always be mindful about the direction and the way in which I'm carving. The reason being is oftentimes those marks will show up. It's referred to as chatter. So a smart printmaker thinks about how chatter can be used to make their image much more successful. Okay, let's look for a moment at this beautiful linoleum print by Stan Kaplan. Notice how he alternates between black line and white line to get a really dynamic print. But also notice that sky area and how Stan has used chatter to great effect. He's thought and carved in only one direction so that we get that sense of wind and light clouds flickering through the sky. Okay, here's my completed block. I'm always going to take a moment and really thoroughly clean it off before I move on to printing.